Hello and welcome to the AVRUM ROSENSWEIG show.
Welcome to one of the internet's best podcasts, where we dive deep into the lives of the extraordinary and fascinating people who leave an indelible mark on our world. Join us as we explore their captivating stories, remarkable achievements, and unique perspectives that shape history and inspire generations. Get ready to embark on a journey through the lives of inspiring people unlike any other.
Hi, folks, and welcome to the show. My name is indeed AVRUM ROSENSWEIG. Before I get going with the interview, I always like to encourage people to think about what they can take out of the next hour or so. My guest today is Shachar Zahavi. Shachar, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
No, it's an honor. It's an absolute honor to have you. I'm going to introduce Shachar in a moment formally, but suffice it to say that he has been ensconced in international work for a number of years, and he's done a brilliant job of it. What I would like you to consider as you listen to this interview is that sometimes the way of finding ourselves is by traveling thousands of miles away, by going to places around the world that are in need of our help, of our resources, of our awareness as to what we can do for others, what our country has done for us. And in Shachar's case, as I'll mention in a moment, he has worked in dozens of countries all over this globe, trying to make the lives of other people better. Sometimes when you're trying to find your zone, when you're trying to find your own personal gift, it's a really good idea to travel, to go abroad, to see what you can do for others. Some people, when they travel, I have many friends who go to Cuba and they make every effort to carry with them an extra bag of pharmaceuticals that they can distribute in that very poor country. And that is a way of attaching yourself to this one world which we all share, and of giving of yourself, of giving of your gifts, your internal gifts and your external gifts. So I would like you to listen for that. Some people will find that international humanitarian work is exactly right for them. So let me introduce my guest today. Once again, Shachar Zahavi. Shachar is an Israeli humanitarian leader. He's renowned for his dedication to global disaster relief and innovative aid solutions. He lives on a Moshav, not far from Tel Aviv, with his wife Rachel, who is Toronto born, and their two children. He began his career in the early 90s, inspired by the Rwandan genocide, when he organized relief efforts. He co founded IsraAID in 2001 as a coalition of Israeli aid organizations, which he led as an executive director for 17 years, growing it into an independent NGO that has provided emergency response, medical support, education, and community rebuilding in over 60 countries, including responses to crises like the 2004 Sri Lanka tsunami, the 2010 Haiti earthquake, and in Ukraine itself. In 2019, Shachar co-founded SmartAid with Ron Zeltzer, an organization focused on leveraging technology such as drones and solar power to enhance humanitarian efforts and build long-term resilience in disaster-stricken communities worldwide. Through these ventures, he has bridged local expertise with global tech innovations, aiding people in Gaza with food and other relief, the kibbutz movement after October 7th, and regions from Afghanistan to California. Shachar and I worked together in the early 2000s when Vehavta was involved in international humanitarian work. It was always a pleasure. It was a pleasure then, and it's a deep honor to have him on my show today. Shachar, thank you for joining me.
Thank you again.
I know a lot of people who became lawyers because their dad was a lawyer, or their mom. I know doctors, I know pharmacists, I know people who do the trades, carpentry and so on, and very often it's because of who their parents were and an area that they pushed them into. Now, you are very unique because there's not a lot of people that we know in the broad Jewish community, let's say, who are involved in international humanitarian work or who are encouraged to go there. But you did. So, what prompted you to do this work?
Well, that's true. My dad is actually a tech worker, and my mom is a teacher. But what prompted me, I think, is more that my grandparents, who were Holocaust survivors, and my parents themselves were activists since I was young. And basically, I've been doing volunteer work since I can never remember. So, yeah, that's how I started.
Do you remember the first volunteer work that you did?
It was it was with Greenpeace, and then we had feeding the homeless, and we did a lot of stuff in Israel. It changed along the years. At one point, it was the peace boat with a Binatan. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, so he was a big part of the influence that pushed me into the Rwanda genocide, because during that time, Israel was really involved in helping the people who fled into the Congo, and he was the leading civil um, group. It wasn't a charity. He just led aid missions to all these different places like the Biafra and the Congo, and that's how I got interested in what was happening there.
You know, when I started Via Hafta in 1996, our program started in 97. People thought I was nuts because a Jewish humanitarian organization had never existed in Toronto, to the extent that when I would explain it to people with great savvy, very educated people, they would say, Avram, you should stay in your job at the United Jewish Appeal. I think I was making $60,000 a year, and that was a lot of money at that time. It was a good, cushy job. But I said, no, it's not what I want to do. I want to move on. I want to be part of the world. Did you have a similar experience in Israel? Did people have any idea what you were talking about when you worked for Latat, when you launched IsraAID?
Yeah, even harder.
Harder.
And sometimes I still hear it today. Aniei Ircha Kodmim. So basically, why are you helping others when people around you here in Israel need the assistance more? And there's enough people suffering here in Israel that need it. And why are you focusing your efforts in helping people around the world? So yeah, that's a constant thing. It's not.
What do you tell them, Shachar?
First, I tell them that I do both, so it doesn't come one on behalf of the other. Secondly, I think that what I do and is that Israel is basically part of a global community, and it always says it is. So when people look at Israel, the contributions of tech and all sorts of innovations that come out of here, say that, hey, we can also export good and do good for the world. So it's a battle. It's a battle, but there's the current generation understands it more. It's easier with social media. You feel more connected.
Are your mom and dad good with it? It's like, oh, my boy has a good job, sort of thing.
Oh, they were. I don't know about a good job, but they were. They're very supportive. Yeah, they're very supportive. Yeah, they don't. Whether it's whether I go to South Sudan or I'm actually flying to Ukraine next month again. But yeah, no, they're happy. They're fine.
Have your mom or dad, or if you have siblings, have they been involved in all?
No. My brother came my brother came one time to volunteer when we had a mission when the Syrian refugees were flooding into Greece. So he came and volunteered during that time. But yeah, family apart and work apart. So.
No, I hear you. That's probably a good policy. You know, one of the things I distinctly remember about my work at Via Hafta and humanitarian work around the world was that I would be on holidays and I would hear about a crisis in a given country, and I couldn't just turn the page of the newspaper, or I just couldn't shut off the news. I'd have to think to myself, damn, I guess we need to get involved in this one. This is pretty big. Is your life like that?
Well, this is interesting because in 2 days, I'm going to be 50 years old in October.
Mazal
And
tov.
Toda. And so Rachel and I are going in a few days to Italy for, I think, my first ever vacation.
Really?
Yes, I've never been on a vacation until now. Not a honeymoon, not a we do 1 day a year, maybe stuff like that, but never more than a day in Israel. I've never been on a vacation outside of the country.
Is that
Uh,
wise? Would you advise, let's say, your son, when God willing, when he grows up and has a career, would you advise that?
I don't see this as a job. I love what I do. So if he loves what he does, it's for me it's weird to actually go on a vacation because I'm trying to figure out what am I gonna do. Like I'm so used to being 24/7 on the go that it's and again I know it's a lot of people suffering and all that, but it's the minute you feel passionate about something, then yeah, it changes you, and it doesn't look. It's not work. So for me, it's not.
Are you able to do nothing?
No, no. Actually, this year was the first time I just found that I tried. This is my first year in doing yoga. So we have in the village someone. So I said, okay, it's not it's more of a it's more with athletes that do triathlons and stuff like that. And it's the only place that the teacher actually makes me close myself in for an hour and a half.
Yes.
So I try and do that twice or 3 times a week. But other than that, no.
I have to tell you something. I find that when people have found their passion, what they're supposed to be doing, if you will, you can see it on their face. You have a certain calmness about you. Your skin is very nice. You look young. Do you feel young inside? No.
Inside, I feel young, yeah, but yeah, no, I feel good, yeah, yeah.
I want to understand the mindset of a humanitarian worker, of someone who especially works internationally in very dangerous places. And to give that a bit of a context, let's take a look at the history of Israel as far as international work goes. Moshav was established in 1958. Um, it stands for the Agency for International Development Cooperation. And the idea was to share expertise in agriculture, education, and technology with developing nations, focusing on capacity building and sustainable development. Again, Moshav had agricultural aid programs, medical assistance, sent medical teams and mobile hospitals around the world, and refugee and humanitarian aid to the Vietnamese boat people, etc. I think it's safe to say, and tell me if you agree with this, that inherent to the Jewish people and inherent to Israel, it's the idea of "V'ahavta l'recha kamocha," that one should love their brother and sister as they love themselves. It's the idea that we share this world, that we're all God's creations, however you define that, and therefore we have an obligation to reach out to those who are in need and share with them the resources that we are fortunate enough to have. Would you say that is your mindset as an international worker?
So it's a little bit with coming from Israel as an Israeli. I look at myself as a humanitarian aid worker. And again, everything that you said about Moshav, I was a researcher in Tel Aviv University on Israel's foreign aid, and I can tell you that when Israel was established, it was considered a country without anything, and then Africa was basically dropped and left by the Europeans with nothing, and Israel just leaped in and jumped and helped Africa rebuild itself. I think that's where it comes from. Eventually, you see people suffering, and You want to try and see if you can help, how you can help, and it's you. For me, it was I think it was a challenge because I'm not saying it's easy to help here my neighbor or someone next door, but there's the idea of seeing someone that is starving to death or someone who doesn't receive proper medical care is something that is causes you to think. I remember the first, and this is where my life changes when what we did is we basically, with a group of friends, we did a campaign in Israel during the genocide. Reached out to 300 high schools and middle schools and asked each child to provide a package of rice. And we were within like less than a week, 3 warehouses packed with rice. I had to negotiate back and forth with the rice company, brought some other items, and then we just rented a plane, flew to Kenya, rented some trucks, drove through Kenya to Uganda, from Uganda to DRC to Congo. And when you get middle of the forest to the middle of the jungle, just the amount of people that you see there, you see little kids taking pieces of paper, dripping and putting it in water and eating it, it totally changes. I think I had, until now, I've been doing this for over 30 and something years. I think every person that volunteered or worked under me in one of the 5 charities that I established until now, I think one has not gotten back to regular work. A lot of them went to work with other international groups, they opened their own charities. It's life-changing to see what a catastrophe can do to you. You can feel it also, by the way, this is something I've never worked in Israel before until the 7th of October. We did still doing a huge program here in Israel, and you see how people react when a real catastrophe hits, whether it's man-made or natural. So, yeah, it's something that changes people.
What's it like inside of you when you come back from the Congo, or you come back from Gaza, or you come back from the Ukraine, and you have seen these devastating situations where people are suffering so badly, be it starvation, medically or otherwise, and you come back essentially to your Moshav, which is a thriving Moshav. How do you sort of manage the change of where you're at, what you see, and how people are acting? Most people don't know that level of suffering as you do.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing. Well, with social media now, it's a lot easier. Up until like 10 years ago, it was really hard to explain to people, even through videos and photos. Now the world is a lot more connected, then it's easier to explain. People get it more. Um, but there is a total disconnect. I can tell you that for decades there, I had my circle of friends were people from the industry or people who understood the industry, the international aid industry. Because other people, it's hard to talk with other people that have the regular life with having kids and going to study, going to work, going on holidays, and yeah, it was a very small community. Yeah, not easy.
So how do you manage it mostly?
Work,
You just work a lot.
yeah, but I don't consider it work. So for me, it's again, I do it 24/7. For me, taking a vacation is something that is going to be interesting.
Yeah, you should probably report in from Italy.
gonna wait and see. Maybe there's gonna be floods there. Who knows?
Most people don't hope for that as they go on a vacation.
No, I don't wish anyone suffering or anything. It's just I can tell you that we when Rachel and I guess you remember that when Rachel and I got married, about 3 days before, I was invited to speak in front of 8,000 people at the National APAC conference.
Yes.
So first time ever with a tie. It was the wedding suit. She let me fly there, said you have to come back 48 hours before the wedding, else that's it. Then so I flew for a few days, flew back. That's the only. But yeah, it's not. It's that it's and I feel that I evolved because in the beginning it was me helping and joining and studying and trying to learn what people need and how to help, and then trying to learn how the international aid community works, then building the first ever actual international aid organization in Israel, which was IsraAID, which I founded. Before that, there were like small drops of different stuff, and I got it into a situation where when I left it with over 200 employees working in dozens of countries, and that was one of my missions to try and hey, there was never an international aid organization in Israel before, time to do something like that, so it was hard. But I also evolved from that. For me, Israel was, how do we build an international aid organization? How do I do this here in Israel? Pull in Israelis, pull in the Jewish community from abroad, and do good for the world, to basically now harnessing technology, which came from a book that a good friend of mine wrote that's called The Startup Nation by Solzinger, if you ever read that. And with IsraAID, my whole concept was, how do we push Israel and how do we get Israelis connected and all that and involved? And currently the situation in the world, whether it's USAID that doesn't exist anymore, or whether it's all these gigantic organizations, now I'm more localization mode. So we have volunteers, we have employees, but a lot of them are, if not most of them, are locals. Ukrainians, Africans, Israelis in Israel, Palestinians in Gaza. And what the added value that we bring here is the innovation and technology, which we pull in from Israel and from around the world. So I even internally, my whole, how the aid world needs to work has changed.
Israel is a very chilled place to be in many ways. There's always this sense of, yeah, he's my neighbor. Yeah, I knew him since he's a kid. They'll say, well, he's a surgeon now. Yeah, okay, so he's a surgeon now. I knew him then. In that light, do you feel the part? Are you seen as? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you're almost like an international figure through your accomplishments, which are vast and enormous. We're going to get to those shortly. But do you feel the part? Do you feel like, yeah, I'm authentic. This is what I do. This is who I am.
Most of my life, I've been behind the scenes. So even when Israel, you can Google me.
That's
you
true.
will not see a lot about me, because
That's true.
my whole essence was doing actual humanitarian work. And for me, I work in a kibbutz style mode where we work straight, meaning the volunteers, the board, the employees, everyone does everything. And when people ask us to come and speak, a lot of the times I just send volunteers and other people to speak. I'm not here to educate people. I'm here to just do what I feel that I love to do, and that's
So I mentioned before that I believe that humanitarian work is part and parcel of the Jewish mind. Would you say that the work that you do represents you as an Israeli and as a Jew? Is this work to you? Some people would call it a kiddush Hashem, that it's a beautiful thing on behalf of the Jewish people. It's a godly thing. Do you see it in that context at all?
um, I see myself first as a human being. And this is, again, this is living under my grandparents' roof who fled the Holocaust from Austria. And that is basically what I've been raised on. So first I'm a human being, then I'm an Israeli, and the Jewish part is has grown like on me, more thanks to Rachel. But but it's if you don't, being Israeli or being Jewish is not why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's basically I'm just here to help whatever I can, and I just feel that that's, I guess, what I was born into.
I know that you have worked in countries that would not be considered friends of Israel or even the Jewish people, in Pakistan, as an example.
Really?
Really, what?
What? People don't? That is a misconception?
Of the people on the ground, if that's what you're talking about, yes, I'm in agreement with you. But certainly the government is not friends with the state of Israel.
Well, no government. I don't think any government in the world is friends with any of their citizens, but that's another topic. But when it comes to countries, we work in Lebanon and Syria and
Yeah.
Afghanistan, Pakistan and
Yes.
Chad, like, and people know, like, you don't just Google the name of the organization. There's no, from when I was in IsraAID, I invented the name IsraAID, and the logo was the Israeli flag, because during that time, people, for me, were like, people didn't know. But now, when you're in such a tech-oriented and small community, it's enough to write Shachar Zahavi or just Smarted, and you can know exactly where I live, where I come from, who I am. And so the idea of pushing the Israeli, we're here to do good. It's not needed. It's not needed anymore. And I can tell you that from a lot of the younger Jews that I meet around the world, and I've been traveling a lot in North America in the past year, a lot of them join us because they're excited that it's young kids from the tech industry, from universities. It's people who are excited from helping a catastrophe, excited of actually leveraging their knowledge in clean energy, clean water, telecommunications, satellites, whatever company they work for. And I can tell you that they're proud because it's what made me realize all this. And this is a very interesting thing, is that during the earthquake in Turkey 2 years ago, we were basically working on the border of Syria, Turkey, in a place that we were told not to go by the Israeli government. But we went anyway because that's where the earthquake was. And we were partnering with some local Turkish groups. And about a year ago, I got a call from from this young Turkish guy, very nice guy, helped us a lot. He volunteered in Rotary in Turkey, and he moved to New York to do his MA, to do his master's. And he moved to New York, and he is studying in Columbia University. And he calls me up and says, listen, do you have anyone in Columbia University or in New York that represents SmartAid? And I said, no. And it was during the time when, still, when, all the protests against
Yes.
Israel,
Yes.
and Columbia University was one of the biggest. And I was talking to him about it, saying, are you sure? Because you're Turkish, you're Muslim, you're well known. He said, I don't care. I'll be your face in Columbia University. I don't care what people say. And basically, that just resonates with me so much, that you have anyone who wants to join us can actually join us and feel proud of actually being part of an international organization led by Israelis. And this is something that is different than us as it's not only us as a community going to help, but it's like you have people who are endangering their lives in Gaza, in Syria, this Turkish guy in Columbia University. These people are like saying, we're working for SmartAid, and yeah, we know what this group is all about. We know where the headquarters are, and we're still willing to do that. So it's a different type of mindset. People are talking about anti-Semitism, about fighting anti-Semitism, by hatred towards Israel. The the when you look at the communities affected, and you look at the people who volunteer and work with us, and our employees, they see another type of person. They don't see you as what is portrayed in the media. And they're willing to risk their lives to continue working with you, volunteering with you, even though it might jeopardize them up to a point. And again, I'm not going to jeopardize people if I see that something might happen and they might get killed in Gaza, or in Turkey or Syria, or in Ukraine or somewhere. I won't jeopardize them as the CEO, but it's interesting to see how it evolved. And I think that's the whole meaning of how you change perception on who we are as Israelis and as Jews, not by only helping as Jews, but actually by doing something and having others who you would have thought are against you actually joining you and risking their lives to be part of what you're doing to help someone else. So,
Nicely
and
said.
and this is the message. It's a message that we're trying to explain both in the Jewish world, and we don't need to explain it to the outside world because the outside world knows it. Yeah.
When I started up the Hafta, as I mentioned, one of the fundamental reasons behind it, Shachar, was to indeed to get out there and show the world who the Jewish people are, and what we can do, and create relationships between us and others. We have vans that go out into the street that are very overtly Jewish. And even in times that people qualify as being very anti Semitic here in Canada, the truth of the matter is that we've made many friends because of the van, because of the Jewishness of it, and the Jewish nature of our volunteers, and the non Jewish nature of our volunteers. But with that, I know that Smart Aid is in Gaza, and you talk about it limitedly, but you've done some magnificent things in Gaza in terms of bringing in 3,500 tents to set up sort of refugee camps, food distribution, and so on. And I've watched some of your videos, and I do believe that the T-shirts that the people are wearing in Gaza do not reflect a big menorah or a big Magen David. Like, you are somewhat low profile about your Jewishness or your Israeli background. Would that be accurate?
Again, I'm not hiding anything, and I'm first a humanitarian before I'm anything else.
Yeah.
That is important to understand. There are advocacy groups that are fighting anti-Semitism. There are Israeli groups that are trying to show another side of Israel. I'm a pure humanitarian. I do it to help people. I'm not I'm not here to explain to people why I'm doing it. I just do what I do, and people can get to whatever conclusions they want to get to. And I can tell you with Gaza was a real issue because I know people who were killed and massacred, and I know I have friends who are now on their fourth round in Gaza, and I know people who died, neighbors and friends. And what happened is that during the 7th of October, it was the first time that we were deliberating, what are we going to do? And a day after, we got calls from donors from across the world, including international aid organizations, saying that they're sorry for everything that happened in Israel and they want to do something and they want to do it through us. Can we be their legs on the ground, meaning in Israel, to try and help? And we have been, in the first year and a half, we said, okay, we don't have an infrastructure in Israel. What do? We need to think creatively. And what we did is we hooked up to the kibbutz movement, hooked up to the national municipality unit, and both of them basically had on like every given second, they knew where people were moving, where they were staying, what their needs were, and we basically dropped ourselves into that hole and help through their warehouses distribute hundreds of tons of aid across the country. We put up for Ashdod, we put up a telecommunication coordination hub for the Ashdod city. Put up dozens of underground classes, smart classes with laptops and tablets, so kids can continue studying even during the war. And around the beginning of January, people started reaching back to us, giving calls and saying, okay, listen, look what's happening in Gaza. Okay, you're a humanitarian aid organization. What is your plan? And living in Israel, being in Israel, going through something like this is not wasn't obvious with all the wars that I've been through, whether it was Iraq, which attacked Israel before when I was a kid, or anything else. This was nothing close to anything that I knew. But what we did is we called friends, we called different organizations, we called different rabbis across the world that I respect them, different Jewish leaders that I respect. And the reason for the calls were, what would you think, what would happen if we helped the Palestinians? What are your thoughts about that? Interestingly enough, during that exact same period, we started getting calls from the IDF and from different government officials in Israel who were saying, hey, we don't trust the UN, we don't trust international aid organizations. We know the great stuff that you guys are doing. We know that you guys have the expertise. Are you willing to provide aid into Gaza? So we basically, from all sides, we're getting messages, come and help. And that's how we started. So in the beginning of January, from Egypt, we purchased tents. We put up 3 refugee camps in Rafah, then started bringing in more food and clean water and hygiene and more tents from Israel itself, and again from Egypt and a little bit from Jordan. And then we got into a situation where a lot of international aid organizations were starting to pour into Israel. Now, to get into Gaza, you cannot get into Gaza without the Israeli government approving you in, because it's a war. And so we became some sort of a mediator. So now, in the past year and a half, what we've been doing is we've been helping bridge discussions and help and discussions between international aid organizations and the Israeli government on and sitting in different closed dialogues on explaining the Israeli side, explaining the international side, one to the rest, and making sure that aid can continue to flow inside. And so, parallel to direct assistance, we're also helping international aid groups and helping Israel to facilitate aid going in. It's a very unique. I've never done that before. Like it's in your backyard in your home. It's
Like they say in Hebrew, it's mesubach. It's very complex. Have you been in Gaza?
no, no. The only people who can go into Gaza are foreigners who are not Israeli. Um, and yeah, you cannot have an Israeli citizenship to go into Gaza.
Shachar, is there a famine in Gaza?
There are parts that are considered almost famine. And the question is what you consider as famine. Listen, the Gaza is in the worst situation that it could be ever, and if you compare it to other places around the world, it's one of the worst places now in the world. Most of the people have moved down to the south. The problem with the aid system is that when they closed the borders for 2-3 months, when you don't eat enough food and then you start getting rations, then I'm not a medical professional, but it affects your body and eventually you can get sick from it. But the situation in Gaza is really hard. It's people need to eat. This whole Gaza Humanitarian Fund that everyone's talking about, those 4 distribution sites, which, in my opinion, again, I don't have an opinion on the company, charity, whatever it's considered, specific, because I don't know specifically the people there, because they tend to change often. But when you do the math, 4 sites for 2 million people
Yeah.
is not enough. And when it's in the South, it basically says women, children, elderly cannot reach. So you only have the young and fit. So yeah, the situation is bad. But now what happened is that Israel started opening and a lot more aid is coming in. And so you have groups like the World Central Kitchen and Global Empowerment Mission and all sorts of IMC, International Medical Corps, and Red Cross that are going back and opening shelters, opening more grassroots feeding centers across the strip to reach more people. Instead of people trying to reach these 4 sites, Israel is now allowing it to spread inside the community itself. So,
I've interviewed some hostage family members who have talked to me about what their family has gone through as hostages. And whereas they may have been very supportive of pursuing a relationship with the Palestinians prior to October 7th, that changed after October 7th. And similarly, in the ultra Orthodox community or the Orthodox community, I think that this interview, what people have to hear from you today, would be somewhat of an anathema to their own ideology and their own way. With that, do you find that through your donations, and you have a very impressive list of donors, not only individuals but corporate, it's phenomenal what you've accomplished, Shachar, absolutely phenomenal. Do you have Orthodox donors? Do you have people who are disenchanted with what's gone on with the Arab leadership or the Palestinian leadership, but still saying we want to help you?
we have Jewish donors, and again, SmartAid has and again, depending on what you're saying, but Gaza is a very unique place because you can only enter food, hygiene kits, water, and tents. So technology is not exactly an option at this point. And that's what we do. We basically, the corporation that we're talking about is basically we come to corporations and say, hey guys, it's great that you're donating millions of dollars to purchase food in times of disasters. We want you to leverage your knowledge and your insights and your products, your software, your people to come and volunteer, because eventually technology is what's changing the world. Whether it's an African lady growing tomatoes in Africa with a cell phone, she knows where to go and sell her products. But coming back to what you were asking, I can tell you that eventually, I understand the family. I understand hostages' families. We have a huge compound here in the village that we established with another group, and it treated since the 8th of October thousands of people from kibbutzim, first responders, all sorts of Nova survivors. A lot of people. It's like one of the largest post-trauma farms here in the area. So I understand where they come from, but I think what happened in the past. This is interesting. What you're saying is right. People were very focused on what happened on the 7th of October. And after a while, they're focused on their family members or friends who are fighting in Gaza and were afraid of them being killed. And the only thing you can see in the news here in Israel was that. Suddenly, like 2.5 months ago, suddenly something flipped in the Israeli media. Not sure, no one can pinpoint a reason for it, but the Israeli media started every day to talk about the humanitarian situation in Gaza. And from people who were basically before the 7th of October, bringing Palestinian children to hospitals in Israel, doing all sorts of aid activities and stuff like that, who dismantled and everybody were shattered because the majority of these kibbutzim were people of that economy. Yes. Suddenly, 2.5 months ago, 3 months ago, people started because they saw it in international news, but for them, the international media was against Israel. And suddenly when you have Israeli media constantly talking about what's going on in Gaza to the Palestinians, then the amount of people, initiatives, communities, groups, charities, companies who are doing their own initiatives to try and help in Gaza and actually are talking about stopping the war for both sides, not only for the hostages and our soldiers, but are also saying, hey, we need to stop because this is not who Israel and this is not us as Jews, it's mind-blowing how within like the past month things flipped 180 within Israel itself. It was amazing to see. So now there are a lot more people who are against the war, who said we need to stop it. There is no for the hostages, for the soldiers who we don't want to be killed, but also we can't continue doing what we're doing because we went through the Holocaust. We went through that. We are not these kind of people. We cannot be as monsters as Hamas. And you see the children and the women and the elderly take aside the men, but when you look at the really very, very weak population, it's interesting. It's fascinating to see and hear. It's I would have never thought in a million years, especially after 2 years of war, between us and half the Middle East, I would not believe that suddenly people are suddenly becoming again conscious, saying, "Hey, we need to
You
for
know,
ourselves, not for others. We need for ourselves to feel that we're human beings. We're not like them."
I find you to be an interesting purveyor of life. Like you watch, you look, you see, it seems to me you digest what's going on, and then you make conclusions and you create solutions. You're a bit of a sociologist in all of that. Am I correct in how you see the world, how you see things going on?
No idea. I don't think too much.
Yeah, I know Israelis never think like that. That's why I bring it out to them, Shachar. But when I hear you speak, and you're very conscious of the fact that the media changed, and therefore the civilians or the people of Israel, many of them changed in terms of their view of Gaza. And also, I was thinking to myself in that light, smart aid. What is smart aid? You go from running an organization for 17 years called IsraAID, and you were on the ground. You did magnificent things. We did some work together, I believe in Haiti and so on, setting up tents, setting up medical hospitals, and so on. Then all of a sudden, something in your mind switched over. And you must have seen technology in such a way that, wait a second here, drones are being used for war, and they're probably one of the most powerful weapons now within war. I can use this for humanitarian aid. When did that sort of idea, when did those thoughts come to you about switching over to a smart aid where you would start using technology on the ground?
So the idea basically with Smart Aid came from a little bit from Haiti, a little bit from Syria. So I'll give you some examples. In Haiti, we were the only organization inside Haiti after the earthquake, and after 4 or 5 years, um, after 4 or 5 days, um, you had other international organizations coming in, and the reason that we were the only ones inside was because they were afraid. They heard that there are riots inside, and if you had drones, then you can basically have mapped and see that no, people were just suffering. We had people, during the war in Syria, people were fleeing into Turkey, and from Turkey into Europe. And the one thing and we were waiting for them in Lesbos in Greece, and the one thing that they kept so close to their heart, they were all wet and soaked, but they had a cell phone wrapped with nylon, and the first thing that they asked was, "Can you connect us to internet? Do you have a place where we can charge? Because we want to tell our families that we're safe. We want to see where we're going next." And basically, I started to think with a group of friends, like, okay, listen, the world is changing. We're not in the 1980s anymore. Things are different now. Aid is different, supposed to be different. And I spoke to my friend who wrote the Startup Nation book, and said, "Hey, why don't we leverage technology and have a bigger impact in the field?" And the idea is, we're not competing with anyone. Basically, what we're doing is we're offering clean energy, telecommunications, fintech, telemedicine, all sorts of technological solutions, both to charities and to local governments, so they can improve their work. So if you had a charity that provides medical assistance, and hey, you can operate enough because they don't have electricity, then yeah, we'll bring in the clean energy units like we did in Ukraine. And if they don't have access to telecommunications to coordinate efforts in Moldova because they fled there, then we brought in Starlink as a partner to put up that. And so basically, the whole idea, the whole message is, how do we leverage technology that exists and make it better on the one hand, And on the other hand, humanitarian aid organizations, and unfortunately, like you see everyone's talking about AI and everyone's like jobs are going to be lost, USAID is closed, FEMA is on the way to be closed. Like, you need to become smart, and all of us depend on technology. I can't move without my cell phone. People can't move without their watches that sees the blood pressure or whatever works. And basically, we're saying, okay, let's just build a bridge between both, help get the humanitarian aid world from the 1980s, from the old type of aid into a new, more sophisticated way. Because as an aid worker, I think like the 1980s, 1990s, but as a regular person, I use laptops, I use cell phones,
Yes.
I put on the roof, I put solar panels. So why is there such a disconnect? So what we're trying to do is basically connected, mentally connect both. And for us, it's people see the tech world and people see that industry, and it's not only tech, it's banks, it's insurance, it's all sorts of they see them as potential donors, because that's where a lot of the money is. But we see them more as potential volunteers with hardware and software that can solve a lot of problems, and they have enough funding because they want to go into new markets. So it's something that helps everyone. And not only that, but eventually they it creates builds local economies from scratch. So you had the earthquake in Turkey, yeah, in Hatay, the whole province was crumbled, and then you have to have the municipality of Adana was in charge of 15 million people, and they were working from pieces of paper, writing with pencils, and for 15 million people, they were in charge. But what we did is we basically came to them and said, "Hey guys, let us build you a tech hub where you can coordinate, everything can go on the cloud. You'll have the laptops, you'll have the tablets to go out, and it can connect to the." And we built it for them. We didn't teach them anything. We just equipped them, taught them how to use the technology. But it helped social workers, it helped medical personnel, it helped all sorts of different types of aid providers, and that's what we're trying to do. It's just connecting the dots.
Shachar,
Uh,
do you take time to embrace yourself, to be proud of yourself?
no, why?
Oh my gosh.
No, why? I'm not. No, no. That's
No,
why
Shachar,
I'm not. That's why you're among the very few that I interview with. I don't interview. I don't seek these kinds of things. No, it's not interesting.
can I just tell you though? Can I tell you something that listening to you and asking you questions and hear your answers, I have a lot of nachas in you. I'm very deeply proud of you, not only for someone that I've known for what 20 years or whatever it is, but also as a Jew and as an Israeli, understanding that first and foremost you're a human being. To live on this planet with another person who is so ensconced in making life better in such a creative manner, such a beautiful way, in all of those ways, Jewish, Israeli, human. I just have great, great pride in you, and I think it's incredible what you've accomplished. I really do. A kol hakavod to you and to all of your team, your volunteers, your donors, everybody. It's really outstanding what you've done. Outstanding.
Thank you.
I've been playing around with AI myself for the last few months and having it write a poem about each one of my guests. So I have an ode to Shachar Zahavi. And by the way, before I read it to you, I want you to know that I mean we haven't talked in a number of years, but your English has become impeccable. How did you brush up on it, or was it just organic?
I have a Canadian wife,
Yeah, I
and
know. It's true.
and two kids who like to only speak English in the house.
Okay.
So
Yeah, your
yeah,
English is excellent. It's excellent. Do you speak other languages other than Hebrew and English?
no, unfortunately
Not
not.
Yiddish?
No, no.
Okay.
I would expect you to ask me if I speak Arabic, but no,
Yeah,
unfortunately not that as well. Yeah.
probably a good idea. So the poem reads as follows. In lands where sorrow's shadow falls, where conflict echo loudly calls, Shachar Zahavi stands with might, a beacon in the darkest night. Through smart aid heart he carves a way. Since 19, bold he's led the fray. With tech as a sword and hope as shield, he mends the wounds of broken fields. When terror struck on that grim day, October 7th, skies turned gray. 200,000 souls displaced, fled homes in fear, their dreams erased. Yet Shachar's vision, sharp and clear, brought light to these consumed by fear. Food parcels, blankets, toys, and care. Tablets for kids to ease despair. Solar lanterns glow where power fades. In shelter strong where hope invades. From Gaza's edge to Lebanon's line, his mercy flows, a spark divine. For children, elders, hearts in pain, he builds safe spaces, breaks the chain. In Eilat sands by Dead Sea shores, he crafts a refuge, open doors. With hotspots hum and techs embrace, first responders find their place. From northern fires to southern cries, his bridge hold neath stormy skies. No side he takes, yet all he aids, his neutral heart in love's cascades. With donors' trust and partners' grace, he rebuilds lives, restores a place. On Shachar, guide of smart aids call, your work uplifts, though war appall. In 25, your mission stays, a star to light the hardest days.
It was wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, you liked it?
I'm embarrassed.
Yeah, you're very, very humble, Shachar. You're very
Sorry about
humble.
that.
But anyways, in conclusion, I want to thank my guest, Shachar Zahavi, for being with me today. It was the absolute honor that I was hoping it would be. I truly enjoyed my time with you, and I'm so happy to catch up and to hear about all your work. And I would suggest to people, as I said at the top of the interview, that sometimes your gift will be found thousands of miles away in another country, in another place. Sometimes it'll be found in your own backyard. But if you have not ensconced yourself whatsoever in international humanitarian work and you feel like there's this drive inside of you, check out Smart Aid or check out IsraAID or all the other organizations that are involved in helping people around the world. There are plenty of them. Any concluding words, Shachar, as encouragement to people?
No, I think you just have to take a jump and a leap, and even though it's hard, if you persist, I think you might be able to find yourself where I am. It's
Yes.
you have to see how people live. People are not in a good situation. Yeah.
By the way, I noticed in conclusion that your fingernails are very well cut, as if you're a piano player or something. Anyways, our best regards to Rachel and your kids. And I thank you once again for your work. I thank you for all my listeners and my viewers. This